Okay, welcome to Author Interviews at Crystal Lake. Our guest today is Rowan Hill. Did I pronounce that right?
Rowan, like the
Rowan,
tree.
sorry. Rowan Hill, and she's here to talk to us and tell all her secrets. So, why don't you begin by telling everyone a bit about yourself and what you write?
Thank you, Anita. I'm Rowan. I am an Australian author currently living in a very stormy Virginia, if you could hear that lightning outside. And I write horror, and specifically, I write nature isolation horror, usually with a creature feature, is what I enjoy writing.
Sort of like monsters in coming to the cabin sort of thing.
Yeah, I haven't written anything that is that nice and clean cut yet. That is, that's a recipe for success. I have not found my monster in the cabin story yet. I have written a monster in a house sort of situation, but I would not call it simple. And it's one of these books where you can't even really talk about it because everything is a spoiler for the ending. It's
Oh
terrible.
yeah, those are the best books.
It was so hard to market. It was so hard. You can't really talk about it because everything would give away. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that's the sort of writing I enjoy. I enjoy outside, isolated places in the world type of
Yeah.
horror.
Yeah, the generic line for those type of books is stuff happens.
Stuff happens. Stuff happens in this book.
Yes.
Exactly.
So how long have you been writing?
I have been writing for about 8 years. And so just a drop in the bucket compared to some people. But I only started selling my work and finding that, it was good enough to sell about 3 years ago.
Okay, so have you enjoyed the publishing aspects of the
Ooh, that's a good question. It's a mixed bag. Um, Obviously, the highs and lows are there. I did get a good dose of reality. My first book I tried querying. I just hadn't had that experience of what was good enough to query, what the market really wanted. And so I really do enjoy the short story market because it's such a fast turnaround, and there's specific calls that are like editors telling you what they want rather than just I'm an agent looking for magical realism. Like, it's like, great, that's my book was magical realism and you didn't like it, so what else do you want? But the short story market is much more um you know it's very specific, and it's very helpful in that regards for knowing what to write.
Yeah, I've done the short stories myself, and it's always fun to find a themed anthology that strikes your fancy.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So, when did you realize you wanted to be a writer, and did you have an aha moment, or was it sort of a gradual process?
Yeah, I did have an aha moment where I got my first idea for a story. Was I was in it was 2016, I think, yes. And I was in the most random place. I was in my husband's grandmother's house. We were like visiting for a night, and it was the Syrian refugee crisis was really happening. It was like the thick of it at that time, and I had this aha moment where it's like, oh, I wonder if, like, what happened if a whole bunch of alien refugees came to Earth? Like, would we treat them like shit? And pardon me, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. And yeah, I had that aha moment where, like, I thought of this entire story in one night, and I wrote it over the next 8 months or a year, and that became a trunk novel. But yeah, that was kind of an aha moment. I was like, oh, I would like to write. I was an English teacher a long time ago, a drama and English teacher, and I taught English for a long time. And I feel like I have a good command of language. I was a linguist, and I didn't think I would suck at it. I didn't know if I would be any good, but I enjoyed writing and I like stories, so I thought I would try.
Yeah, I think that's how all of us get started. We enjoy writing, and why not?
Yeah, I mean, what else are you gonna do, right?
Yeah. So, why did you decide to write in the horror genre specifically?
That is a good question. So I actually grew up a science fiction kid. A science fiction fantasy kid was all the books that were laying around in my house from my father. And I watched a lot of science fiction. We occasionally watched, like, my dad would bring back Killer Clowns from Outer Space, from the video store. But as much as I love science fiction, I don't think I have that technical knowledge to write science fiction. If that, you want authenticity. I'm sorry, my nose is really itchy for some reason. you want authenticity in your novel, right? And you notice that a lot of science fiction authors have some sort of background knowledge. J. Diane Dotson, she is some sort of very brainiac scientist. I'm not being facetious there. She is a very smart woman. And, so I don't feel like I have that knowledge to write science fiction well, as much as I would like to. And so I feel science fiction is really just a horrific look at the future. So horror actually came quite naturally. Take away the science part of science fiction and you're left with something terrible and horrific. And so that's and I enjoy writing it. I like to think I'm quite a nice and kind person in in real life, and I like to be generous with my time. I like to help my neighbors. I like to go to barbecues, and so this is kind of a cathartic, I guess. Like, this is how I get out all of my. This is my form of road rage. Like, I just write scary stories.
Yeah, yeah, I'm the same way. People think I'm nice until they read what I write. Then they start looking at me funny.
I know, yeah.
So what's the hardest part of writing horror fiction for you?
I haven't reached that level of craft where I can emotionally decimate a reader. I feel like I do quite well with plot twists, and like I do backwards engineering a story, like where you know the ending and you have to recreate it as you go. I do quite well with all those sorts of stories, but that emotional, like, the making someone cry when they read something poignant, I haven't reached that part yet. And that's something that, takes years sometimes, I think. I don't think I've been writing as long as I need to kind of reach that level of skill in the craft.
Yeah, that does come over time, that particular skill.
Yeah, I don't know how to choose the right words to rip people apart.
So, what do you enjoy most about writing in the horror genre?
That is a great question. I really enjoy writing terrible things beautifully. Making so for instance, right now I'm writing a story involving jellyfish, and jellyfish are bastards. They are, I do not like jellyfish. I have been stung by jellyfish. They are a terror in the water. They decimate so much. If you ever travel to Australia and you go in our summertime and you travel to the coast and you're like, oh, I'm going to swim in the Australian waters and it'll feel so nice. No, you have to wear a wetsuit anytime you go in Australian along the Great Barrier Reef, because jellyfish are just everywhere. But I enjoy, so I'm writing a story about jellyfish that are killing everything, but I enjoy trying to make them seem like celestial creatures floating through oceans of like cerulean blue and cosmic light floating through their tentacles. So, and that's something I try to do for every, I really enjoy writing very, probably a little bit superfluous, probably not all needed, but I do like writing bad things and ugly things in more aesthetic terms.
Well, it's a nice juxtaposition to when you're writing is
Mhm.
to take something pretty and something beautiful and then just make it do things that you wouldn't.
Yeah, put
Yeah,
it in a different perspective in the lens. Yeah, I can see that.
yeah. I try to do that with innocent things like children.
That is a well-known trope. You're right. It's a beautiful thing. Kids are beautiful. Kids are fun and innocent until they are not. You're right. I totally forgot about kids.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about your writing process, where your ideas originate, and do you have a certain writing routine?
I have no routine, Anita. There is nothing.
Oh, good,
I,
another one.
I have I have a day job, and so I am finding it that unless I have that immediate inspiration, it really takes me a long time to get into the right frame of mind, to find the quiet time to sit down and put those words into paper and find the energy, because writing is takes a lot of energy and concentration. There's not a lot of process with me. um, Sorry, there's thunder. Oh my lord, this is a real spooky interview.
Well, yeah, perfect atmosphere for horror writers. So,
My inspiration though comes from lots of like reading many other writers. Usually short stories. I get a lot of my inspiration from short stories. I get much of my short story inspiration from other writers and like grabbing a visual that perfect example. I have a Joe Lansdale old collection of stories here, and he's has a beautiful werewolf story in the end of this called The Gentleman's Hotel. And he crafted this scene at a bar in an Old West hotel. And the image was so striking. It immediately gave me an idea for like another not werewolf story, like nothing, but he writes so well in his like creating a scene that it was very inspirational, and that happens to me quite a few times. For longer stuff, my longer works, I usually am inspired by places and thinking of all the terrible things that can happen in these isolated places.
yeah, the landscapes and pictures and visuals like that can definitely inspire ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your greatest challenge as a writer?
Oh, finding time. Um, I mean, uh, yeah, finding time would be my greatest challenge. As I kind of mentioned before, it's like I wish I could be one of these people who can like think of a sentence and write it down and go with it, but I need I need to sit down. I need to make sure I've had like 8 hours of sleep and that I'm not tired. I need to have been immersed in my story. Before I had a day job, I could, and I had inspiration, I would pump out, like I would spend 6 hours a day writing a story. But now that I don't have that kind of time, it's a great challenge. It's just, time is always your enemy, and nothing more true than a struggling writer who's not solely dedicated to writing.
Yeah, time's always our enemy, I think. So, what's the best thing about being a writer?
I really enjoy when people tell me they appreciated my writing. I would like to say the money, but I haven't found that yet. But I do like it when, I have a high school friend who reaches out and tells me that they really liked my book, or they were amazed that I could write that well, and or they're proud of me. That's really nice to hear. Or like send me a photo of like the library, my book in the library halfway across the world. Yeah, I really kind words from readers are really the soul food for me, I feel, and probably a lot of other writers, I would say. I think that's a common theme among new writers, at least.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you have a favorite author or someone who inspires your writing?
You know what? I do not have a favorite author. I was thinking of this question. I I mean, I have many books that I love and adore, but time is precious, and so I do not ever really try to read an entire bibliography of one author, because I want to vary my reading. I definitely like certain books. I used to read from the time I was like 17. I used to read Lord of the Rings once every year, which, God, that always sucked up like a month. Um, Recently, I mean, Anne Rice is always going to be a staple. I was a big Jane Austen girl for a long time, which is like the opposite of horror, but she was fun. She was fun. And let's see, what do I have on my bookshelf? I have the Lev Grossman. I really enjoyed his series this year, the Magician's Trilogy. And you know what? I'm getting into a lot of Lansdale. I think short stories by authors are a really good way to kind of dip your toe into them, and see if, like, in the future you look for their names on bookshelves. The latest, I'm sorry, I'm like sitting right next to my bookshelf, so that's why I'm magically pulling out this. The latest book I just read, this one, The Fisherman by John Langan. If we were talking about how to make beautiful, like ugly things beautiful, he is a master class. I highly recommend that book. That would probably be, to answer your question, that would probably be my favorite book at this moment in time.
Okay, and Jane Austen fan here too. So
Yes.
it's not that strange to write horror and read Jane Austen, I guess.
No. I majored in 15th to 18th century literature when I was doing my bachelor's degree, so they really pushed her in that class.
Okay, so you mentioned a lot of books you like. Is there anything you're looking forward to reading this year?
Yeah, I do. I have this book, Whalefall. Have you heard of Whalefall by Daniel
No,
Kraus?
I
It
have
is,
not heard of it.
I'm assuming he got his inspiration, I hope he did, from the real life story of the man last year who was swallowed by a whale. It's a story about a man swallowed by a whale, and he only has a certain amount of time to get out. I'm looking forward to that one. It sounds wild, and I'm always up for reading people who are trying to do crazy stuff with their writing.
Yeah, it does sound interesting. Okay,
Mm.
so what do you like to do when you're not writing? Do you have any hobbies or any hidden talents?
I don't know about hidden talents. I am an outdoor person. I do like, and that you can see that if you read my stories and you've read more than one, you can probably see that I am an outdoorsy person. Like, I like to hike, I like to kayak, I like to leave the country for a month and go and hike a mountain range and be out of cell service. That would be my hobby.
Okay, yeah, you lost me there because I am not an outdoorsy type of a person, but
Oh, that's okay. I'll
I
do
know
it.
a lot
I'll
of
do it for
people who
both of
are
us.
also. Anyway, so what's next for you? Do you have any upcoming projects or books coming out soon?
Yeah, I do. I have my first. It's a short novel. It's like 50,000 words, so it's like feels strange to say debut novel because it's so short. But yes, I do have a novel coming out in October this year with the indie press by Wolf, and it's called Foxfire. And if you know anything about the Northern Lights, you would know that that is another word for the aurora borealis. And yeah, so that's coming out in October. I'm starting to do all my stickers and merchandise for that.
That sounds interesting. So we'll look forward to that. So I think we'll wrap the interview up here. And thank you for being a guest today. It was a pleasure
Thank
chatting with you.
you. Thank you, Anita.
Okay, and that's it for this episode. And bye for now.